If you were to take an acre for a slice of soil, which is 2 million pounds, it's about 43,560 square feet, at about 6.5 inches, that would weigh 2 million pounds. And if you take a Midwestern soil, a typical one would be like a silty clay loam, 3% organic matter, and a cation exchange capacity of 18. So what we see when we do the math is we realize a certain percentage of all of that soil, especially the organic matter, contains nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. It's basically in a bank or in reserve. If we can pull into that, we can bring more of these key nutrients into our program. So we do the math, and what we see with it, using this particular soil here from Illinois, is we could have as much as 4,000 pounds of nitrogen in the soil. And you can see some of the forms that it's available in, like ammonium and nitrate. Unfortunately, if you look at that last column there, only about 1 to 50 pounds is available at any one time. So a lot of nitrogen is in the soil. Unfortunately, we're not using the full potential. The same is true with phosphorus. If you do the calculations for phosphorus in most Midwestern soils, you can have 1,000 to 1,200 pounds. You can see the forms depending on the pH, what form that it's in. But we have very little of this phosphorus in the soil solution, maybe as little as 1/10 of a pound. So that's a real concern for us, that we don't always have enough N, P, and K to maximize our corn yields and hit our yields. What we see during the rapid growth phase with nitrogen is that a lot of nitrogen is pulled up from about V9 to about R1, or the VT stage or brown silk stage. So as much as 75% of our nitrogen is taken up during this critical period. So plants need a lot of nitrogen, and nitrogen is usually one of the most limiting nutrients that becomes limiting during the season for many, many growers. We know that nitrogen is really important for a lot of reasons. It's the basis for amino acids and enzymes and the chlorophyll production. So it's important that we have adequate nitrogen for the plant. And one thing to think about, nitrogen needs about, you need about 7 pounds of nitrogen per acre per day for about 21 days during this critical period. So it's really important that your nitrogen is available and it's in the right form. We just talked about how it can be lost. So here's the similar graph for nitrogen uptake and partitioning. And remember, our goal is 230 bushels, and we're looking at about 101 pounds of phosphorus that's available or needs to be available for the plant growth. It's a similar curve as the nitrogen curve, but not quite as steep with the phosphorus uptake. We need about 50% of our phosphorus during the rapid growth stage from V9 to VT, and then the other 50% when they start partitioning the phosphorus into the grain to fill the crop out. So only as the challenge that we have, and what we got to continue to remember, and I know I've said this once before, is that a lot of the phosphorus is simply unavailable in the plant. Phosphorus needs to be in the soil solution, needs to be soluble. Phosphorus is very immobile in the soil. And the other thing is a lot of it, very little of it, is actually soluble and available in the soil solution. So it's really important that we look at the adequate amounts of phosphorus in the soil, that blue area that you see there doing grain filling, but also during the rapid plant growth. One of the things that a lot of people tend to forget about, and I sometimes call these our forgotten friends, and these are the soil microbes. Now, we do know that microbes are the good guys and the bad guys, as you want to say. A lot of the bad guys are responsible for soil-borne diseases like Pythium and Phytophthora. But a lot of the microbes, in fact, the majority of the microbes in the soil are actually very beneficial and helpful to us. So what this chart basically shows is that the good guys, the microbials, degradation of organic matter. We talked about how much nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium are in the organic matter and potentially can be released. These microorganisms like bacteria and so forth are responsible for increasing the availability and the uptake of key nutrients to the plant roots. And ultimately, these microorganisms like nitrogen, they release nitrogen and phosphorus, which are essential nutrients that have to be converted from plant unavailable forms to plant available forms. Or another way to look at it is they're in an organic form and they get converted into an inorganic form through the process of mineralization.